Hey everybody, grace and peace. My name is Paul Dezay. I'm the pastor of Sandy Hook United Methodist Church in Columbus, Indiana. It is good to be with you today. Today, we're beginning a new video series titled, What is the Gospel? It's a question. What is the gospel? Now, this series is going to define what is the gospel and equip you and me to be people that can share the gospel clearly and easily with the world around us. And so we're going to answer the question, what is the gospel? And also to be equipped and empowered to share that message. Hopefully that is good news to you. Today, in this very first video, we want to just kind of wrestle with the question, what is the gospel? We think about our answers that come top of mind to that question. And then also consider whether or not we're confused about it. So what is the gospel? How would you answer that question today? I believe that my very first answer would be good news. And that would be totally correct. The gospel is good news. That's what the word means. Gospel means good news. Now, think about this in your own life. What has been the good news moments and memories of your life? Things that have happened that you wanted to tell the world, because the good news is news. It needs to be shared. It needs to be broadcasted. It needs to be announced. And so take a look at your life. What are the good news announcements of your life? For me, I think of getting married. August the 8th, 1992, when I married Stacy Powers. That was a big day in my life. And I wanted to announce it and tell the world. I love my beautiful bride, Stacy. Tell the world. The birth of my 3 kids, Rebecca, Jacob, and Micah. Wanted to announce to the world the birth of these 3 amazing children. The birth of my fantastic, terrific, wonderful granddaughter, Cecilia. I wanted to tell the world, so I announced it all over social media, right? Because the good news needs to be announced. Now think about your life. Maybe it was, when you got a job or a promotion, or when you moved, or, birth of children, or those are things you pronounce. And that's what the gospel is. It is good news. It is meant to be shared. It is news to be proclaimed. It is something to share to everybody, right? And I would go on to say that the gospel that the church has been given and entrusted with is the greatest news ever. Gospel means good news. And the question is, what is that good news? For many people, they would say, well, the gospel is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And you would be correct also. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And within those books of the Bible, the gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, we find the message, the gospel message that needs to be shared. But the gospel isn't Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John. What is the good news then? What is the good news? For many people, and this would be me for a long time, would answer that question, what is the gospel, with Jesus died for my sins so I can go to heaven when I die. Now, I believe that's part of this whole deal, and I think that is good news. I believe that's it. But I believe that it's much bigger than that. I believe the gospel is bigger than me praying some sort of prayer so I can go to heaven when I die. I propose that we have reduced the gospel down. We've made it really small, and we've made the gospel about a decision. We've made the gospel about a transaction. Think about it this way. When I go to the store, let's say I'm going to Chipotle today to get a burrito bowl, which I love, right? I tell them what I want, and then I give them money, and they give me the bowl, and I enjoy the most amazing heavenly food ever, right? That's a transaction. They do this, I do that, and that's what it is, right? I would suggest to you that the church has reduced the gospel, this greatest news ever, down to a transaction, where I do this because Jesus has done that. We've made it about a decision and not discipleship. Decisions produce consumers. This gospel message produces disciples. And so my suggestion to you is the gospel is bigger than a ticket to heaven. The gospel is bigger than a get out of hell free card. The gospel is the greatest news ever. And the response to that gospel is what we refer to in the church as salvation. But the gospel is not salvation. The gospel is the greatest news ever. And it leads to what we refer to in the church as salvation. Now, that might be a big deal to you, or maybe that is like, duh, I know that already, Pastor. But I'd like to get that out of the way first. The gospel is not salvation. The gospel leads to what we refer to as salvation. In the Greek, there's two different words. There's the word gospel, which is where we get evangelistic or evangelism, shares the good news, or evangelical, that's someone who proclaims the good news or shares the good news or believes in the good news. So that word in Greek is different than the word for salvation, soterio. And so we're going to talk about that during this series, but these two ideas that we have blended together has distorted what the real message is that we're called to announce. You might be thinking, oh, just please tell me what is the gospel? Well, I tell you what, I'll give you a little hint and then we'll dig in next week. So the passage of scripture that I will leave you with today, that I believe is a great starter passage, is this. It's Matthew chapter 4, verse 23. And this is what it says in the NIV. Jesus went throughout Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness among the people. Let me repeat it one more time. Jesus went throughout Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness among the people. All right, that was a little passage to get us thinking. Did you catch what the gospel is, the good news? Did you catch what that word is that Jesus is using in the way that he is teaching and proclaiming? It's that word kingdom. The gospel, whatever it is, has to do with kingdom. That's enough of a hint. We'll just stop right there. So I would encourage you to answer that question, maybe in a journal, maybe in your prayer life, maybe kind of to sit down and even do some little pre-work in the scriptures. Maybe take a look at that verse in Matthew, and to be really thinking, what do I say the gospel is? Because I think if we're not certain what the gospel is that we believe and that we share, if we're not clear on it, if we're confused on it, then that's going to affect the results of our own lives, our witness, but also our churches. And I am very, very concerned that we're confused on what is the gospel. Grace and peace. I'll see you next week.